In this video, we're going to talk about factoring. Now, factoring is a skill that you're asked to do a whole lot. The problem with factoring on these standardized tests is you're going to do them in sections where there's no calculator, which really means you're going to have to be good at mental math, because the speed of the test means you're going to have to really be able to find solutions very quickly. So I'm going to walk through some examples of factoring with you so that we can get good at this and remember how we used to do this. Now, you have an equation such as this. They want you to factor it. Basically, they want you to break it down into its parts. X squared can be broken down into x and x, so we're using that FOIL method, that breaking it up into two sections. And so what's going to be super important, the first thing you want to look at is right there, what's that sign? If it's positive, that means that both of your signs are going to be the same here. Okay? If it's a minus sign, they're going to be different. So they're both going to be the same, so that means they're both going to be positive. All I have to do is find something that multiplies to make 4 and adds together to make 5. Well, I know that 4 is 2 times 2, and it's also 4 times 1. Now, you don't have to write all this down. I'm just making a visual for you. If I put 2 times 2, that multiplies to be 4, but added together to be 5 does not give me 5. So I know it's a 4 and a 1. I'm going to check my math real quick. You don't ever have to do this part. I'm just going to show you the justification of why it works. So if I multiply it back together, that's x squared. That's 4x. Now I'm going to multiply the 1 times both of them. That's 1x, and that is 4. Those two guys are alike. X squared plus 4 and 1 is 5. X plus 4. You'll notice I got my original formula back up here. Now you don't have to do all this extra stuff. Factoring breaks it down, and you get your answers like that. Okay, so that's how you factor something. Let's try another one. Let's say you have one like this, x squared plus x minus 12. So we're going to start factoring. I'm going to break it down. X squared is x and x. Notice the sign's different. So that means one's a plus and one's a minus. So since they're not the same, you're not going to add them together, you're going to subtract them. So I need to know numbers that make 12. So 2 times 6, 4 times 3, 1 times 12. I need to multiply together. It's one of these three sets that multiplies to make 12, but subtracts to make 1. Well, if I subtract 6 and 2, that's not a 1, that's a 4. How do I know 1? It has to be a 1. Well, that's not, it's got to be this one up here. So I'm going to put in a 4 and a 3. And I have to really guess and check my work. Here's what I mean. There's my x squared. If I check real quick by pointing, that's minus 4x. That's minus 4x. And this is plus 3x. When I put those together, I get minus 1x. Does that match that? That's a minus, that's a plus. Oh, I had the signs in the wrong place. That should be a plus. That should be a minus. So it's trial and error. These are my factors for that equation. All right? So it's trial and error. Even I have to do it. Teachers have to do it that way. It's trial and error. You just figure out where it goes. Sometimes they're a little more complex looking, like this. Well, this isn't a 1 now. So I still have to break it down. I know that 3x and x make 3x squared. Okay? Again, look at your sign. They're going to be the same. Perfect. They're both going to be minuses because that's a minus. Now that means I need to have two numbers that make 8. So that's 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And then add together to make 10. Ooh, but there's a 3. Let's just pick one. Start with the closer numbers and we'll work up to the big numbers. 2 and 4. So I got to check my work. Again, it's trial and error. There's my 3x squared. When I multiply those two, it's minus 6x and minus 4x. Okay, one more time. Minus 6x, minus 4x. Does that give me minus 10x? I actually got it right the very first time. There's my answer. I don't have to change anything. So when I multiply those two together, that gave me my plus sign. So I know that this is the factoring. Okay? If I went too fast, back up and watch it again. But here's one more to try with me. 2x squared minus 7x minus 15. Factoring it. 2x and x. That's a negative. So one's a plus, one's a minus. Really going to be trial and error. 15 is really just 3 and 5. Let's see how I did. 2x squared. So there's my 2x squared. Minus 6x. That's those two. Plus 5x. When you put those together, you get minus 1x. That's not right. So flip your numbers. 3 and 5. I must have had them in the wrong place. Now let's see how we did. 2x squared got that minus 10x plus 3x. There's my minus 7x. Now I know I have my factor right. That's how you factor. Now, one of the steps of using factoring is then sometimes they go a step further than that, where they will say, find the solutions. That might be the instructions for it. Just says solve. And they want you to factor and then work from there. So here's what I'm talking about. Let's take that first equation that we had, and they'll have it set to 0. And they want you to solve. To solve it, you have to factor. Okay, so I know x and x, that's a plus sign, that's the same. So they're both pluses. Two numbers that multiply by to get 4 and add the 5, so that's a 1 and a 4 equals 0. And those are the answers I had a while ago. This is the same first equation I did. But now they want us to solve it. To solve it equals 0. So here's what you do. You take x plus 1 has to equal 0, and x plus 4 has to equal 0. Ignore that one for a minute. If I want to solve this one, x equals minus 1. There's one of my solutions. And x is minus 4. There's my other solution. Now, you really don't want to do this on a standardized test that's timed, but let me prove to you why it works. I'm just going to take this number and I'm going to put it back in and prove to you why it works. If x is minus 1, so if that's x squared, minus 1 squared is a 1. And then I'm going to put a 1 right there, minus 1, so 5 times minus 1 is a minus 5, plus 4 equals 0. Is this answer, does this side equal 0? 1 minus 5 is a minus 4, plus 4, 0 equals 0. So I know that's a solution. And I could actually plug the minus 4 in there, and I'll do that just this time very quickly. But again, you don't want to do this. This is why these are the right answers. Minus 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16, and the negative goes away. Minus 4 times 5 is minus 20, and plus 4 equals 0. So this side should equal 0, and that side should equal 0. 16 minus 20 is a minus 4, plus 4 is a 0. So 0 equals 0 again. So these are my two solutions. Again, you don't have time to go back and check them like that unless you're just completely lost. But when you solve them and you set each of them equal to 0, you have the solutions to your original question. Let's try another one. 2x squared plus 8x equals minus 6. Now it looks different because they put it in the wrong form. It should be equal to 0. So all we're going to do is bring that guy back over here. 2x squared plus 8x, I have to add 6 to get it to come over here, equals 0. I'm going to factor. And so notice, same sign, plus, plus. 3 and 2 give me 6. Let's just trial and error. Let's see how we do. That's 6x and 2x. That's plus 8x. I got it right the first time, I guess. And you'll do the same thing. You'll get it right the first time, and then sometimes it'll take you 2 or 3 shots to get it right. So now I'm going to set 2x plus 2 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. X equals minus 3 on that side. On this side, 2x equals minus 2. X equals minus 1. My two solutions, negative 1, negative 3. All right? Again, if I went too fast, go back and watch it again. Do it with me. That's how you solve that. Here's another one. What if you had something like this? 2x squared plus 8x equals 0. We'll just do a couple more examples. That one looks really different, but it is set to 0. How would I solve that? Well, first thing I see is there are x's in both of them. So if I took out an x, then I have what's left if I take one of the x's out is a 2 and one more x. Take an x out of that one is an 8. Set them both equal to 0. X equals 0. So there's one of my answers. 2x plus 8 equals 0. Minus 8. 2x equals minus 8. X equals divide by 2 minus 4. There's my two solutions. Not very difficult. The math's not very hard. It is, do I remember how to do it and do it quickly? One last one that's like this. Let's say we had 2x squared equals 32, and they want you to solve the equation. First thing I see is I can divide by 2. X squared equals 32 divided by 2 is 16. To get rid of a square, you have to take a square root. This is the one that gets some people. 4. The answer is really plus 4 and minus 4. How do I know that? Well, anytime you take a square root, the answers are the positive and the negative. So if I plug it right back here real quick, 4 squared is 16. What if I had minus 4 squared? That's still 16. So I actually still do have two solutions. It could be written like this, or x is minus 4, x is plus 4. Either way, those are my solutions. Okay? A way that sometimes they word it that can trick you, we'll say something like this: find the zeros for, and they'll give you an equation that looks like this: f of x equals 2x squared plus 5x minus 7. Now, that looks tricky. F of x, just a quick hint, anytime you see f of x, it's a function of x, which means everything is in x's. There's no other letter. And so when it says find the zeros, all you're doing is setting that f of x equal to 0. So basically what you're saying is, it's a terminology thing. When they say find the zeros, they want to know if you understand what it's asking. And so I'm going to just factor 2x and x. And so that means different signs. One's a plus, one's a minus. All you get is a 7 and a 1. See if we can get a plus 5. So there's my 2x squared. That is minus 14x, and that's a 1x. That doesn't give a 5. So let's switch them. Let's make that a 7, and let's make that a 1. That gives me minus 2x, and that gives me 7x. Minus 2 and 7 is a plus 5. There it is right there. Set it equal to 0. So 2x plus 7 equals 0, and x minus 1 equals 0. X equals 1. 2x equals minus 7 divided by 2. X equals negative 7 halves. There's my two solutions. Okay, so it looks the same, but the wording is different. When it says find the zeros and they give you a function, they're telling you make that function equal to 0. So set the whole thing equal to 0, and we just did the same exact math that we did. All right. So in the next video, you're going to be able to practice some of these on your own. Good luck.